There are secrets that fade with time, and then there are secrets that grow heavier with every passing year. Mine grew from a tiny, fragile heartbeat into a 20-year mountain of guilt and fierce, unrelenting love. I was barely an adult, 19 years old, packing for state university and dreaming of escape, when my mother called. She wasn't asking for help. She was announcing a new complication. A fifth pregnancy. My parents' lives were a storm of addiction and instability. I had tried to escape it, but the moment I held Daniel, this tiny, perfect miracle, I knew he couldn't. I spent 6 months watching them fail him, watching him cry, and watching the eviction notices pile up. I looked into his eyes, and I saw a future I had to save. It was no longer a matter of should I, but how quickly can I? I made the decision alone. I forged the documents. I lied to my childhood friends. I told everyone, even the social worker who looked at me with pity, that Daniel was my own son, that I was a young mother who had chosen life. My parents, in their own broken surrender, agreed to stay away, to call him their grandson, in exchange for my silence and his safety. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, and yet I never once doubted it was the right thing. I became a mother at 19. I worked 2 minimum wage jobs just to afford a safe apartment 2 states away, scrubbing floors and studying manuals in stolen moments. My world narrowed to Daniel's nap schedule and the fierce need to keep him from ever discovering the brokenness he was born from. The hardest part wasn't the financial struggle, it was the constant internal translation. When he asked about his dad, I told him the truth. There wasn't one. When he asked why his grandparents seemed sad when they visited, I told him they just missed me. Every single answer was a variation on the original, perfect lie. I was a brilliant, meticulous liar, and it killed me slowly. My youth wasn't lost. It was sacrificed on the altar of his future. But as he grew, the lie became a cage. Every achievement, every birthday was bittersweet. When Daniel would draw a picture of our family, I would look at the stick figure labeled Mom and feel a profound disconnect. I wasn't his mom. I was his sister. The secret felt like a rope tied around my chest, tightening with every beautiful, necessary deception. Then, the most unexpected thing happened. I met Mark. He didn't see the 19-year-old single mother. He saw the woman who had built a life on strength and devotion. He loved Daniel instantly. He became the first person in my life who made the lie feel heavy enough to break me. Because now telling the truth meant risking not just my own future, but the happiness of the 2 people I loved most. For 2 years, I stalled. Mark proposed last spring. The ring was beautiful, but it felt like a shackle forged in deceit. I couldn't stand at an altar and start a new life while clinging to the old one's greatest deception. The day after the proposal, I knew I had to tell him everything. I sat Mark down, trembling. I didn't ease into it. I just said, "Mark, I love you, but I have to tell you the real story of Daniel." The confession tumbled out. The addicted parents, the decision, the forged documents, the lie that he was my son when he was my brother. The silence that followed was suffocating. I couldn't breathe. I watched the love leave his eyes, replaced by something cold and unfamiliar. He didn't yell. He didn't even raise his voice. He just said, "You let me love a child under false pretenses. You let me plan a life with a woman who has lived a 20-year lie." He said, "I don't know who you are. How can I trust you to tell me the truth about anything, if this is the foundation?" He was gone. He took nothing but his keys, and he left behind a hole that Daniel, in his innocence, couldn't understand. I had saved my brother, but I had destroyed my chance at happiness and shattered the trust of the man I was going to marry. The secret had finally come due. I realized that saving Daniel meant perpetually losing something else. For months I was adrift. I was a mother to my brother, but a sister to no one. Mark was gone. Daniel's 17th birthday came and went, and all I could focus on was the fear. When do I tell him? How much longer can this lie protect him before it breaks him? My isolation was complete. I finally called my best friend Sarah, who lived thousands of miles away and who only knew the official version of Daniel's birth. I told Sarah everything, the full, messy 20-year truth. I waited for her judgment, for her to echo Mark's words of betrayal. But she didn't. She just said, "You didn't lie because you're a bad person. You lied because you were a kid who was the only adult in the room. You committed an impossible act of love." That word, love, resonated differently. The redemption wasn't in erasing the lie. It was in owning the difficult, heartbreaking truth of why I told it. My purpose was to protect Daniel, and I had succeeded. Now the next step in my redemption had to be honesty, with Mark, and most importantly, with Daniel. I reached out to Mark. It took 2 months of pleading, but he finally agreed to meet. I didn't defend the lie. I just presented the story. The fear, the necessity, the desperation. I showed him the old apartment, the letters from my mother. I explained that every minute of the deception was born from my desperate need to give Daniel a childhood, something I never had. Mark didn't come back immediately, but he started showing up for Daniel again. He started talking to me. Our true breakthrough came 6 months later. Daniel was turning 18. The time had come. We sat Daniel down together, Mark and I. We started at the beginning, not with the lie, but with the love. We told him about his birth parents, the struggle, and my decision to choose him, to claim him, to save him. I watched his face. I braced for the anger, the shock, the feeling of his world tilting. The emotional peak, quietly powerful, deliberate pause before the last sentence. He looked at Mark, then he looked at me, and he took my hand. His voice was quiet, but firm. "You didn't have to be my mom," he said. "You were just my sister. But you chose to be my mom. You chose the hardest way to love me." That was it. That simple act of acknowledgement was my absolution. It was my redemption. Mark and I got married last fall. Daniel was the best man. He still calls me mom, but now the word is laced with something richer than familiarity. It's laced with respect and gratitude. The secret almost destroyed my life, but the truth, the pain, and the ultimate desperate love made my family stronger than I ever thought possible.